I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I'll just dive right into it. I've been married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We have two kids, Emma, who's 7, and Jack, who's 5. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but overall I thought we had a decent life. Lisa was always a bit bitchy, quick to throw insults or dismiss things I said, but I thought maybe that was just her personality. We had a routine: work, kids, dinner, TV, bed. Nothing extraordinary, but I was content. Or at least I was, until I started noticing strange little signs that didn't add up. It started with small things: her phone ringing more often, odd hours she'd disappear into the bedroom, and her brushing off my questions like I was a pest. She'd lie about where she was going, say she was meeting her friends, then I'd find out later she was nowhere near them. I'd catch her glancing at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, and sometimes she'd quickly hide it, acting suspicious. But I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed or having a rough patch. We had no big problems really, just the usual petty fights and her bitchy attitude. Still, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Then a couple of weeks ago I got the weirdest feeling. I work late sometimes, but I was supposed to be home early that night. I decided to come home a little earlier than usual, just to surprise her. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car wasn't in the garage she normally always parks inside. That wasn't too strange, but then I saw her through the living room window. She was sitting on the couch, but her posture was strange. She was leaning forward and her phone was on the table. She wasn't alone. My stomach clenched. I couldn't see exactly who she was with, but the way she was touching her hair, giggling, whispering, it was obvious she was talking to someone. I quietly slipped in through the back door and tiptoed closer. That's when I saw her face on the screen of her phone. She was in a chat with someone, and the texts were suggestive. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, Lisa, was having sex with someone else. I froze, watching as the woman's name popped up on the screen. It wasn't just flirtation, there was explicit stuff, and I could hear her giggling and whispering as I stood there behind her. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was cheating on me. I wanted to scream at her, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, feeling numb. My mind raced. Who was this woman? How long had this been going on? Did the kids know? Did I mean nothing to her? The betrayal hit hard, and I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how. I just knew I couldn't pretend I didn't see this. I had all the evidence I needed now, and my life was about to change forever. The next morning, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing over what I saw: the videos, the texts, her laughter, how easily she lied about everything. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see it coming. I was furious, crushed, and feeling like an idiot for trusting her. I decided I had to confront her, but I wanted to be prepared. I needed to hear her explanations, her excuses, and I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Lisa was already up when I got out of bed. She was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee, acting like everything was normal. She always had that bitchy smirk, like she was better than everyone else, and today was no different. I took a deep breath and decided I'd do this right. I wanted to get everything out in the open without losing control. I sat down across from her, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "We need to talk." Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "What's there to talk about, Mark? Can't you see I'm busy?" Her voice was dismissive, but I pressed on. "No, Lisa, I saw the videos, I saw the texts. Tell me what's going on." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked genuinely surprised, then annoyed. "Oh, that," she scoffed. "It's nothing, just some stupid flirtation. You're overreacting." Honestly, I was blowing off steam. It didn't mean anything. She tried to brush it off, but I wasn't buying it. "Blowing off steam? Really? You were having sex with another man, Lisa. How does that just not mean anything?" Her face turned red and she rolled her eyes. "It's none of your business. I screw around sometimes, big deal." That's when I felt my blood boil. How could she be so dismissive, so callous? I told her, "No, Lisa, it is my business, our family's business. I want a real explanation, and I want it now." She looked at me with that bitchy glare, her voice dripping with disdain. "Fine. If you want the truth, I've been bored. You're never around. You come home late, don't pay attention to me or the kids. I needed something else. Someone who actually makes me feel alive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like my world was collapsing. I had been so blind, so naive. She claimed she was bored, that I was neglecting her, but I knew the real reason was her craving some excitement, some validation elsewhere. I asked her who the guy was and she just smirked, said she didn't want to tell me. That. She was tired of hiding it. She even had the nerve to call me insecure and a terrible husband for even suspecting her. I felt a mixture of rage, sadness, and disgust. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this betrayed. I wanted to lash out, but all I could do was sit there, feeling like I was drowning. I told her I needed some time to process. She rolled her eyes again, shrugged her shoulders, and went back to ignoring me. As she walked away, I knew everything had changed. That was the moment I realized I had to do something about this. I couldn't let her get away with it, not without consequences. The rest of that day was a blur. I kept replaying everything I saw and heard. I felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. I started thinking about what I should do next. Part of me still wanted to save the marriage, to believe she was just bored and meant to come back. But deep down, I knew this was bigger than that. I'd been played, used, and discarded. And I wasn't going to let her keep walking all over me. I had to think carefully about my next move. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her laugh, imagined her with that guy. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her all these years, and now everything felt like a lie. I kept asking myself, what's my next step? I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and the faint hope that maybe she'd come clean and tell me it was just a mistake. Early the next morning, I decided I needed to see more evidence, something concrete. I remembered I had that nanny cam hidden in the living room, something I'd set up months ago just in case. I hadn't thought I'd ever need it, but I was grateful now. I turned it on and waited. I wanted to catch her in the act, or at least get proof of what I suspected. That afternoon, I played back the footage. I couldn't believe what I saw. At around 10:30 p.m. the night before, she had slipped out of the bedroom and gone into the living room. The camera caught everything. Her sneaking out. Then her meeting with that guy, who, by the way, was someone I'd never even heard of before. He was tall, confident, and clearly had no respect for our marriage. They talked for a few minutes, then she invited him over. The footage showed her letting him in, and then, well, you can guess the rest. They went into the living room and I could see them kissing, touching, her whispering things I won't even repeat. It was all there. Seeing it on camera hit me like a punch in the stomach. She lied about everything, about meeting friends, about being busy. She'd been sneaking around with this guy for who knows how long. I couldn't handle it. My knees buckled and I felt the room spinning. My stomach churned with a mix of betrayal and rage. How long had she been cheating on me? How many lies? Did she even care that she was destroying what we had? I sat there, watching the footage repeatedly, trying to process what I was seeing. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with proof. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just making accusations. I had hard evidence. My mind was already racing, planning how I'd approach her. I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore, not after seeing everything so clearly. I had to decide whether I was going to fight for this marriage or cut my losses and walk away. I also knew I had to be smart. If I was going to confront her, I needed to keep my cool. I didn't want her to spin some story about how I was crazy or paranoid. No, I had the footage. I was ready to show her that I knew everything. That's when I started thinking about how much this was going to change us, how it would change me. I'd never been this angry, this hurt. But I also realized I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I had to be firm, and I had to decide what I truly wanted from this mess. That evening, I finally decided I couldn't play nice anymore. I needed to confront her face to face with everything out in the open. I waited until she was in the kitchen, pretending she was busy with her phone, acting like she didn't know I'd seen everything. I sat down at the table, pulled out my phone, and played the footage for her loud enough for her to hear every second. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She froze, eyes wide, then started blabbering. "What are you doing? Turn that off. That's not what it looks like," she shouted, but her voice shook a little. I cut her off. "No, Lisa, it's exactly what it looks like. You've been screwing around, sneaking out late, lying to me about where you're going. I've got proof." I paused, watching her squirm. So tell me what's going on. Who is this guy? How long has this been happening? She tried to act like she was the victim, throwing in every excuse she could muster. You don't understand, Mark. I was just bored. I needed some excitement. You're never here. You're never around. I was lonely and he made me feel alive again. It's not like I love him or anything. I just needed a release. I felt my blood boil. That's bullshit, Lisa. You're not some victim here. You're manipulative, selfish, and you've been cheating on me for months. How could you do this? How could you be so damn cruel? Her face twisted with anger. Oh, please, you act like you're the innocent one. You're never home, and when you are, you're too busy working or ignoring us. I needed someone who actually paid attention to me. If you cared, maybe I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. I couldn't believe her words. She was twisting everything, turning herself into the victim when she was the one who betrayed us all. I told her, no, Lisa, you don't get to play the victim. You made a choice. You decided to cheat, to lie, to betray everything we built. And I'm done with it. I want a divorce. I saw the flash of shock in her eyes, but she quickly recovered, trying to act cold and dismissive. You're overreacting. It's just sex, Mark. It doesn't mean anything. I don't want a messy divorce, she spat. But I wasn't listening. I knew this was over. She wanted to pretend everything was fine, but I had the proof I needed. I told her I was done, that I was going to get a lawyer, and that I wanted her out of the house. Her bitchy attitude turned into outright fury, but I held my ground. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. That night I stayed up late, contemplating everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach so many times that I couldn't breathe. I thought about the kids, about what they'd say if they knew the truth, about how I'd rebuild my life without her. I knew I had to decide what was best for me, for my peace of mind and sanity. I'd always believed marriage was sacred, but now I saw it for what it was, a lie she told herself and us. I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again, but I knew one thing. I was finally done pretending to be okay. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, packing, and walking around with this heavy weight on my chest. I was furious, hurt, and a little numb at the same time. I kept replaying everything in my head, her words, her lies, that damn footage. It was like a scene from a bad movie, but unfortunately it was real. I knew I had to make some clear decisions, not just for myself but for the kids too. I didn't want them to grow up in this mess, so I decided I'd fight for full custody, something that was going to be messy enough without her trying to manipulate the situation. I told her she needed to leave. My lawyer drafted a formal notice and I handed it to her one morning. Her face was a mix of fury and contempt. She argued, shouted, and tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining everything, that I was overreacting. But I didn't care. I'd seen enough to know I couldn't fix this. I wanted her gone, and I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. I also set some strict boundaries. She could see the kids, but only under supervised visits until everything was settled. The hardest part was seeing the pain in the kids' eyes when I told them their mother was going to be away for a while. Emma kept asking, will she come back? Is she mad at us? I held her close and told her that sometimes adults make mistakes, but we'd be okay. Jack just looked confused, clinging to my leg. It broke my heart to see them like that, but I knew I had to do what was best for their future, even if it meant hurting everyone in the process. Meanwhile, Lisa didn't go quietly. She threw tantrums, called me names, even tried to threaten me with false accusations. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just some insecure husband who couldn't handle her having a life outside the marriage. She said she wanted to fight for her rights, whatever that meant. Honestly, I stopped caring about her side of things. All I wanted was to put distance between us and focus on getting my life back together. What really hit hard was realizing how much I'd been blind. I kept thinking about the good times, the promises, the future we once dreamed of. All fake. Everything was built on lies. Yet I also knew I'd survive this. I had to. The betrayal cut deep, but somehow I knew I had to pick myself up and move on. The trust was shattered, but I still had my kids, my sanity, and a shot at rebuilding a life without her. The whole experience has left me bitter, but also oddly stronger, like I've had to find a new version of myself in all this chaos. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'll never look at her the same way again. And honestly, I don't think I want to. I hope she gets what she deserves, and I just want to find peace in all this mess. That's all I can really ask for now. Looking back, I realize this whole experience has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe that honesty and trust were the foundation of a good marriage, but now I see how fragile all of that can be when someone chooses to betray you. The pain of discovering Lisa's affair was almost unbearable, but it forced me to confront some hard truths about myself and what I deserve. I learned that I shouldn't ignore the subtle signs or dismiss my gut feelings. Sometimes, those whispers are warnings I shouldn't ignore. Since everything happened, I've worked hard on rebuilding my life. I've started therapy to deal with the trust issues and emotional scars this has left me with. The kids are adjusting, and I'm doing my best to give them stability, even if it hurts to see their sadness. I've also become more cautious about who I let into my life now. Love, trust, and honesty are more valuable to me than ever before, and I refuse to settle for anything less. Honestly, I don't harbor any bitterness toward Lisa anymore. I just feel a deep disappointment. She wanted excitement and validation outside our marriage, but she ended up losing everything: her family, her credibility, and the respect of the kids. I hope she gets the help she needs and learns from this, but I'm done carrying that burden. My focus now is on healing and protecting my children from the fallout of her choices. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how small they seem. Be honest with yourself about what you can and cannot accept. And remember, betrayal doesn't define you; how you respond to it does. It's painful, yes, but it's also an opportunity to learn your worth and start over. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about resilience. It's about realizing that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. And I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be, not because I wanted to be, but because I had no choice. Life goes on, and so will I.